Hey guys, welcome back out to Harvest Hills Ranch. You ready to be a beginner plus? Well, today we're going to be taking a look at lower body exercises for beginners who aren't quite beginners but are ready to take that next step up, and we're going to show you how to do these exercises with bands. Hey guys, I am Dr. Arland Hill here with Leah Hill, and we have a passion for all things nutrition, health, and wellness related, and we are looking forward to sharing with you some additional exercises that you can incorporate in for the lower body. And if you're interested in targeting some specific areas, maybe just looking for a bit more challenge, these are going to be some exercises that you can incorporate in. So we're going to jump right into these, Leah, and we're going to show these guys how to do these and how to start to mix up their exercises or their workouts a little bit.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's do it, guys. The first exercise we're going to take a look at today are going to be seated hamstring curls. And before I introduce the band into the conversation, a hamstring curl is we're flexing the foot towards the butt muscles, towards the buttocks. And what we're going to do is now we're going to add resistance. And this could be done with two legs. It can be done with one leg at a time. It doesn't matter. You can alternate however you want to do that. But what we want to initially do is find an anchor point. You could use if you have a big enough table, you could use a leg on a table. You could use in your bedroom, the bedpost would work for this. But just take the band and loop it around some type of anchor point. And we are going to take the heels and just bring the heel of our foot is where just above that. You'll probably feel that the band lands a bit better around the ankle, and we're just going to take the band and curl our heels towards the bench. Now, I've talked about in prior videos that as a starting point, I like the bench because there are exercises that you can do with the bench even prior to getting into the bands. But this makes a nice sturdy position. If you could use a chair if this was all what you needed as a starting point. But the idea is that we want to keep those feet down towards the floor, just a bit off the floor, hovering if you will. We can lean back, we can sit up. However, there's different variations on this, but you want to take that band and just pull it back and let that band go back slow. Pull your heels towards your buttocks and then let it back slow. Heels towards the buttocks, let it back slow. And if you needed to have some additional resistance on this, you could do an additional loop around whatever the post is. You could use a heavier band to make this happen. All of these things are going to be ways to advance the exercise, but it's the same core philosophical exercise. Now, if you've ever seen a gym or been into more of a commercial gym, there are machines that mimic this. They have the leg curl machine where you're seated and it has the pad and you're pulling the pad down. But the other hamstring curl machine that you see is a lying hamstring curl where you're face down. This is also called prone, but I want to show you that as well because you can equally do that with the band. So I'm going to flip around here and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's take a look at that. I'm just going to flip around on this. So we want to make sure that when you're doing this, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. This is going to require a bit of coordination initially, but I just take that band and hook it around one foot right there, and then I lay down and I take my other foot and just hook it. And now I've got both feet in there. And literally all I'm going to do is stabilize myself. I want my knees hanging off of the bench make sure I have adequate mobility, and I'm going to curl. I'm just going to curl like this, slowly release, and you'll feel that in the hamstrings, especially right here is where you're going to feel that at. Now, one thing that's important to note about this is that the hamstrings actually cross two joints. They cross the hips and they cross the knees. This is going to focus on more of the motion of the hamstring as it crosses into the knees. And interestingly enough, some of the calf muscle here also crosses the knee joint as well. And so inherently, you are going to be contracting some of those muscles as well and training those. But if you're looking to truly target these muscles in the back of the leg here, this is an excellent way to be able to accomplish that. All right, so there's two varieties of hamstring curls. Let's move on to the next one. The next exercise that I'm going to demonstrate to you is called banded hip knee extension kickbacks. Wow, is that a mouthful? But let me explain this to you and it'll make quick sense. Band, of course, and then when you extend the knee, this is the motion of knee extension, this is the motion of hip extension, and then a kickback you would think as kicking the leg back. How do we put all that together? Well, we use an anchor point, as I talked about prior. Could be a bedpost, could be a table leg, anything that's a solid anchor post. Could be your husband, whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. But you're going to take that and you're going to anchor that off. And now we're going to bring one leg in. And you can use the whatever you're anchoring to as a stability point if you want to initially. We're just going to lean forward and we're going to kick back. All right. And then back and then kick back. And what I would recommend doing with this exercise is holding for just a moment at the top of the movement. Okay? Now, when you're doing this, don't let your pelvis rock one way or the other. I'm exaggerating, but be very attuned as you're going through this to keeping your pelvis stable. And so you just kick that back, and you may even place one hand on the opposite hip and just see if you can feel that pelvis rocking. Okay? Now, that's if you're anchoring and doing this movement horizontally. We can also do this movement vertically. And let me show you that. Now, we need an anchor point. We're going to change our anchor point. And in this example, the anchor point is going to be above us. You may find that, whether you've got a door jamb that you can hang this over, you may, if you have a consistent place in your home that you exercise, you can put a D-ring into the wall and put that into a stud. That will work. But whatever your anchor point is up, you can loop this through. Okay. Now, when you do this, come halfway down the band, maybe even a bit more, and just lean your body weight forward into that to bring the band down. And all you're going to do is step on it. You're going to step and let the band contact right through the middle of the foot, right through that arch. And you can stabilize yourself if you need to, but the idea is that you're kicking down and back, right? So you're just extending the knee and the hip is all we're doing here. Down and back. And just like before, hold it at the end of the movement, at the end range there. Hold it for about a second or two. Contract. Slowly let it back up. And that's your movement. And again, this is the banded, as the name implies. It's the banded knee, hip extension kickback. And so you extend the knee, you extend the hip, you put all that motion together and you do it under banded resistance. And when you're doing this, it's a great exercise to identify imbalances in the hamstrings and in the glute muscles from side to side. So we want to certainly incorporate something like this in, because this allows you to find those imbalances and get those corrected efficiently. Now, I would highly recommend getting these incorporated in. Now, let's move on and let me show you a few other of what I like to call these beginner plus exercises here, okay? So these are going to be more difficult than those beginner exercises, but not too difficult to where you can't do them. So let's take a look at what else I have for you today. The next movement we are going to take a look at is the good morning. Now, if you haven't seen the banded stiff-legged deadlift, go back to our other lower body video and take a look at that. But just as a quick reference point on this, when we were doing that exercise, the feet were over the band and we were using the band and pulling the resistance from the floor up. And the idea with this was simply to come up with the band, put a slight bend in the knees, lock those knee joints, and bring the pelvis back where we felt the stretch in the knee or in the hamstrings, and then we would contract our butt muscles, contract our glutes, and stand straight back up. This movement, the good morning, is literally the exact same movement, only the resistance point is going to be different this time. So rather than pulling from the floor up with our hands, we're going to loop the band around our shoulders. Now, we take the band, put it under our feet, right under the mid-arch there, right at the middle of the foot, and we're going to loop the band around the shoulders to where it's comfortable. And again, we're standing back up, and same principle as before, same movement pattern. We're going to bring the pelvis back, and you definitely can start to feel that in the hamstrings here, contract, and then we're going to stand back up. So the weight is pulling down on us from the shoulders, around the back of the neck. We kick the pelvis back and we stand back up. And when you go down like this, if you're leaning on over, that's not ideal, because now what you're doing is starting to round out the spine. We don't want to round out the spine. We want to get good contraction or good stretch in the hamstring muscles. And then when we stand back up, we want to stand up straight and contract those glutes. Lean over, stand up straight, and contract those glutes. All right? So that's going to be your good morning. The last exercise that we want to take a look at is going to be a predominant lower body exercise. In fact, it's going to incorporate in the most fundamental lower body exercise, which is the squat. And we're going to add an upper body component to that. So this is going to be the banded squat with overhead press. Now, the way that we're going to do this, how we want to set this up, is we want to get into the squat position and we want to grip the band. And what we're going to do is go down and bring the band, just curl the band up, throw your elbows out and hold the band up. Now, when you stand up with this, from this position, we're just going to stand up. Now here, we can take the band on up and we go down and up and down and up Inherently, what you are going to find when you do this activity is that, especially early on in this movement pattern, you're going to find that the band is going to want to pull you forward. And that is a reflection of lack of mobility, whether it's in the ankles, in the hips. It's a lack of mobility. But as you continue to do this exercise, in fact, even after you do a few reps, you're going to find that this is an easier movement to accomplish. Let me use a different positioning here with you so you can get a different view. But again, grip the band, all right? And then we're gonna come down, just tuck the band under. The band's going to go on the outside of the knees, and then as you stand up, you can press overhead and just hold that. Okay? Keep those feet flat and stand back up. It doesn't look challenging, but it's actually quite challenging. And when you're doing this movement slowly, you'll begin to feel, whether it's in the lower body, but especially in the shoulders, you'll feel that depending on where you're at in the movement, you'll feel that your body wants to pull one way or the other. Sometimes you'll want to pull forward a bit, sometimes you'll want to pull back a bit. Keep the movement pattern slow so you can correct through the movement pattern, and that way you're not creating muscle imbalances. We don't want to do that. The idea here is that we want to just add another layer of challenge to a bodyweight squat. And if you feel like, I'm not doing that, and I can do the banded body weight or the banded squat, and that's really where I need to stop, I would suggest that you need to get really good with your banded squats before you try to implement what we were just doing. Now, I will show one other thing here that you can do with this. If you have two of these bands, and we like to keep two of each band resistance level around, the other thing that you can do is, if we had two of these, so one in each hand, is you can come down and do this. Now, if you want to, one of the things that we can do is you can do a few reps where you're holding one side, and then you can go around and you can switch to the other side and just balance that side out by doing a few on just that side up as well. And if you want to bring and keep this more dynamic, when you come down, and I'll go ahead and use two bands to illustrate this. Thank you. What we can do is, to make this movement a bit more dynamic, is when we come down, we can press up. Now, one of the things that I notice when I'm doing this exercise, it is definitely, and I have it categorized as a lower body activity. No question. I feel this throughout the posterior side of the lower body, on the front side, but I'm also feeling this through the mid back as well. When I've got these bands up and I'm stabilizing those bands, I'm taking my shoulder blade and I'm pulling it down against my rib cage throughout that entire movement. So as I'm coming up, I'm keeping my shoulder blade tucked into my rib cage, pulled down, and then when I let it down, same thing, right? And so definitely you'll feel those muscles in the mid back start to burn. If you are looking for a way to advance your lower body activities, you're gonna be hard pressed, especially when it comes to these bands, to beat some of the exercises that we've talked about today. Initially, they look fairly simplistic, but you will find when you start to implement this category of exercises, they begin to bring out a lot of your weaknesses and imbalances very, very quickly. And you'll notice that whether it's maybe your right's more dominant, the left's more dominant, whatever it is, if there's some type of imbalance there, you'll begin to see these imbalances very quickly by implementing the exercises that we've talked about today. So with that being said, guys, if you are looking for additional information, hey, go to drarlandhill.com and you can find out all about how Leah and I support our patients there. And if you want to find out what we're doing out here at Harvest Hills Ranch, you can go to harvesthillsranch.com and you can find out all about how we raise food with uncompromising principles and ethics. We do it the right way, right? All right, guys. So until next time, I'm Dr. Arland Hill with Leah Hill. We will see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.